Welcome, everyone. We're just letting people in. It's just a little after the 6th Central European or midday Eastern. So we'll just give it a moment or two just to give people the time and space to join, but a very warm welcome to you all. Got much snow in Oslo right now?
No, not yet. We are waiting for the snow to come. It could start anytime.
Okay, very good.
Temperatures are close to 2 to 4 degrees.
Hi, Jason. Welcome.
Hi, everyone. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good to see you. Make sure that you ask Joey any questions you have in mind.
Okay, cool. I will do so.
Hi, Arthur. How are you?
Hi, Nathan. Very good. Yourself?
Very well indeed, sir. Very well.
I think I saw Dominique on earlier. Hi.
All right. Well, very warm welcome, everyone. Thank you for taking time out of your day to come and discuss what is this incredible topic, journey to conscious leadership. We've been speaking to a couple of not just speakers that are happening now, but also upcoming speakers. And the way to describe the group in this is really quite unique. It's a group of people that all share one thing in common, and that is they all have a level of awareness. They're conscious people. They very often have conscious activities that they're a part of. And the great thing about what we're going to learn about today, and also in all of these series, is how is the journey into being conscious, conscious leadership as a whole, how does it look like? And we're going to be learning more about a great individual and a great story today. So a very warm welcome to all of you. So we'll just start with agenda. We're going to run for, typically we say the hour. We're going to leave it open at the top of the hour. So we can run over a little bit if we have other questions going on. Okay, so very good. So agenda. So I'll do a little introduction. I'm going to set the scene. For those of you that are new, have not been before, you'll get a sense of what we'll cover today. A little bit about myself, I'll introduce, as well as the co-founders of Chen. I'll introduce them, but most of you know of them anyway. So we'll go into exploring consciousness. We'll just touch in on that a little bit and talk about the flavors that we explore within this and also what it means for each of us. Dominic, can you go back a slide, sir? Thank you. Then I'll introduce our incredible speaker. That's Jerry Pringle. You see him on here, and he's tuned in from Toronto, originally from the UK, but I'm not going to steal any of his thunder. There's plenty of greatness to come from that. So we'll hear from him, and you can ask questions throughout if you like, and also we'll open it at the end. Feel free to use the chat box, and we can either address them as we go. We'll keep it nice and organic. We're a conscious bunch. We can do it together, I'm sure. And then towards the end, we'll wrap up. There'll be some key points that you can learn and connect with him and his story in other ways, but also we'll look towards a questionnaire that we're going to put out. We always look for feedback. Feedback's important. We get this better, we make it better. It's better for you, it's better for everyone. So we look toward those things as well. As I say, we'll look to run towards the top of the hour, but we will keep it open if we have questions going on beyond that. Then we can explore further. We'll go a little bit longer beyond that, maybe to 1:15. Okay, so introductions. I'll begin with myself. If you weren't fortunate enough to be on our first event, which was really quite incredible, where we saw Howard and his incredible aquaculture saving the world through his incredible business. My name is Nathan Hallmark, and I work for a company called Link Strategies. The company I work for is a conscious business accelerator. I have the incredible privilege of largely working with conscious companies, sometimes very small, other times they're quite large, but conscious people and conscious companies, and I help them grow and scale. My story here is that I was looking to find more like-minded people. It took a fairly simple Google to find Chen and find both Esther and Dominique as just incredible shining lights in this world, and the group of Chen that they had created. And the three of us got together and we decided we can do something with this. We can bring people together and we can start sharing stories and learning and exploring what it is to be conscious. And that's the theme of, Journey into Consciousness was born. And that's what this series of events is really all around. Okay. So you might recognize this if you were on our first one, but I want to recap it, what we mean by when we're talking about exploring consciousness. So consciousness it's a very broad topic. But principally, I think if we try and quantify it into some simplistic terms, and then we can lend it into the stories that we'll hear, what we're going to hear about is how the journey of consciousness and our awakening and our desire to look towards what it is and how it impacts us is highly unique. And that's the great thing that these stories will share. But as these graphics represent, it's really around, what happens in our lives to make us then stop and rethink and be aware of our surroundings aware of events in our lives and how we think about it. So how does consciousness impact us in our period of time and make us change our behaviors? And then we look at, how can we then become what we choose to be? Is it better if you use duality, or is it just different? Is it more aware? Is it more conscious to people around us? So the impact it has on us as individuals, what it does to us and the way in which we choose to live. And then we permeate that into groups and the consciousness of groups. So how does it impact the way that we interact? This group right here would be a great example of that, how we meet like-minded people, we share thoughts, and then this notion of consciousness lives on and breathes through all of us. And then with enough of that, as we're beginning to see that happening around the world, as we see elevations in global consciousness, then we get to see it happen on a global scale, and more good things are happening. We're seeing more and more of our major challenges as a race being tackled through innovation and people caring and, again, becoming conscious and thinking, how can I impact the world, rather than necessarily self-promotion. So that's really what consciousness is all around, and how we can permeate and find greatness in it. A couple of great things that came from some work that I've been doing with Esther and Dominic, something that we came up with, which was really brilliant, that I'd like to share with you. And that is that to be conscious is to exercise our own personal awareness. It is not an endeavor to increase the human consciousness that is shared between all humankind, but to bring ourselves to the point of perception that lies beyond our mind. And that's something I leave with you to consider as we go on, we move forward and we explore these themes, not just today, but also in this series as a collective. And there's a great quote which I'd like to share with you, and that is from Jiddu Krishnamurti. Freedom lies beyond the field of consciousness. In other words, beyond the human mind. So I'm just going to recap on what we cover when we go through this, and that is the journey into consciousness is that point where we have, not in all, but in a lot of cases, we'll have that inflection point in our lives. Something perhaps went wrong. Some people refer to this as the long, dark night of the soul. Other people are just born with the gift to look around and be aware of people. So the journey is to consciousness is that aha moment. What am I doing in my life? How does it make me feel? I'm going to stop. I'm going to rethink, and I'm going to change direction. And then that ties into your why. So why did that happen? Not just the things that happened to you, but what then made you change direction? What made you start thinking about things? What is the root cause or the why of your consciousness? And we want to tap into that as individuals and also in this. We then move into the framework of, okay, so that happened then. Where are you today? What does that mean? And what does that look like? And how is life for you now? And then we look towards the sense of, what does the future hold? We don't know, but potentially, what are we looking towards? What are we striving towards? And how has that differed from what once could have been, but actually now is this new conscious future that we've created for ourselves? And I think we're really spoiled today to have an individual who has an incredible story that ties in so nicely with this. Something I'm really thrilled and shared to be able to bring into this event. Joey is someone that I've met through meditation groups, and his story was already pretty infamous at the time. But as time has gone on, I would guess over the last 12 months, his story has evolved and really ties in with the themes that we're looking at here. So without further ado, it's a great privilege to be able to introduce Joey Pringle. He'll talk about his story through these themes of his journey into consciousness, his why, where he is today, and what the future holds. Over to you, Joey.
Over to me. Thanks, Nathan. Thanks, Esther
Pleasure.
and Dominique, for having me. It's lovely to be part of these conscious groups of individuals. So about myself, I'm in the world of fashion, and fashion, unfortunately, is a pretty unconscious space right now. So whenever I talk about consciousness, it tends to get lost quite a lot. So it's nice to be talking about something that is just such an impactful thing in my life now, which is pretty much everything in my life. So it's great to be here. So I guess I'm going to just start with the storytelling. So get cozy, get next to a fire, get a drink, and I will go into my story about myself. From the UK originally. Studied industrial design at university, moved down to Australia where I worked as a designer during my third year of university. And I worked in fashion in Australia as a backpack designer, as an intern in Melbourne. I went back to the UK after Australia and graduated from university in a BA honours in industrial design. And I couldn't go back to Australia because of visas and stuff, but I decided to get out the UK because at the time the UK just wasn't for me. It still isn't. And I moved to Vancouver, Canada. So I traveled quite a lot in my life and decided Vancouver was a place that I had a great network of people in, and decided to pack up and move to Canada. So the first 4 years in Canada, I was a carpenter, building houses and decks, so nothing to do with fashion, but it had lots of things to do with design. But 4 years into Canada, I wanted to get back into fashion, and after becoming a permanent resident, I decided to explore becoming a fashion designer again and getting back into that world. Yeah, one thing led to another in the industry, where I got from a very corporate company, and then I moved into a company called Tentry. And Tentry, I was an accessories designer for them. And basically at Tentry, this is what kind of unfolded into what was to come next. And at that time in my life had been extremely serendipitous. I was spiritual to some extent, but I wasn't the most spiritual being. I believed in fate, and I believed in things happening for a reason, but I wasn't kind of locked into just like into any type of religion or any type of higher, like into the universe and these kind of things. It wasn't on my agenda at the time, but I'd like to think at the time, even though I didn't understand consciousness, I was a conscious person. I tried to, in my day-to-day life, at the time, I more so from an activism standpoint, alienated myself from humanity, trying to do things differently, trying to do things what I believe was correct, just like basic recycling, doing good things in my life, because what I could see from the human race, how badly we were treating the planet. And this is kind of what started my passion for sustainability and just basically combining my career with doing something good. As a fashion designer with Tentry, my job took me to Vietnam and to China. So what I would do for Tentry was I would design the accessories collections, I would develop them, I would source sustainable materials, I would manage the supply chain across Asia. What happened for me was I was working in China, and at the time still I wasn't meditating at this period of time. I was just being a normal guy, just going through life, but trying to do it well and trying to fuse sustainability into my day-to-day philosophies, and especially working with the company I worked for. They were very environmentally conscious, and it was lovely to work for a company like this. So basically what happened for me was the big bang that happened in my life was I was in Vietnam, and I was on a trip to Asia. I started in Shanghai, went to Vietnam. Plan was to go to a place called Guangzhou, which is southern China. And the purpose of this trip was to meet a factory that we were going to move our business away from. So Tentry, how they like to do business was they like to see their factories in person before making a decision as big as that. So my plan was I was traveling on my own, and I was going to go to Guangzhou to meet this factory and to tell them we're going to move the business away because it wasn't working for X, Y, and Z reasons. The crazy things that happened on this trip, where this is when the universe started to really play its part, and I was really starting to listen to things that were happening, was that I was stuck in the airport in Vietnam. I couldn't get my flight to Guangzhou due to the most random technicality of a visa. In one particular part of China, you need a visa to enter. I didn't know about this, and basically I was stuck in the airport. And I mean, long story short, I was about a minute away from missing this flight, and I managed to call a bunch of airlines, re-strategize my flights, and I was able to get on this plane. And never in my experience traveling had I ever been that close to missing a flight. But here I was in Vietnam, and I ran onto this plane, and I got onto the plane, and I was just like so close to canceling this part of my trip. And if I canceled it, what would happen next? It just wouldn't have happened. I would have gone to Shanghai. It would have been a proper sliding doors moment. So I caught this flight to Guangzhou. And as I said, the intention of this trip was to meet this factory and to explain to them that we're moving the business away. So at the time, Tentry, who I worked for, very sustainable in their business model. The factory I was working with, they specialized in luxury fashion. So with luxury fashion, sustainability isn't really a big thing in the luxury sector right now. So for a company specializing in environmental product, making it under a luxury factory, it was a clash of values and a clash of interests. So this is one of the big reasons for moving the business away. So I got to Guangzhou on this crazy experience in the airport, and I got there, and I explained to the owners of the factory that I'm going to move the business away. Very quickly on in our meetings, he explained to me that I can't move the business away. He's like, I love the company that Tentry stands for, and I want to keep them working with us. I told them that it's just a clash of values, and he explained to me that he's a converted Buddhist. My first question was, if you're if you're a practicing Buddhist and you're believing in these values and philosophies in life, how can you work with leather? Because it's obviously, you know what I mean, these two things are just colliding and they don't go together. So he explained to me that he's only become Buddhist in the last couple of years, and his business is 10 years old. And what he wanted to do was he wanted to start this green factory model. He wanted to transition his business to doing something quite big and quite dramatic in the industry. And for me, I had this gut feeling at the time, being like, I was so close to missing this flight to this city. I was so close to missing this opportunity. And then I meet this guy and he's telling me all these values that are so heavily aligned with mine. One thing led to another in the space of 3 days, and I just felt like destiny was screaming at me. It's like something magic was happening in you know what I mean, in the universe for me to get this flight, come here, find out that I met this incredible man, and we discussed what a consultant would be like for me, consulting him with his business. And I had an amazing 3 days in 2018 in Guangzhou, and I moved back to Canada. And I decided to become a consultant for this guy. After a crazy trip, I was just like, something just happened in this part of the world that I'd never experienced in my life before. Something screaming at me that this is my destiny. And went back to Canada, went back to my job, continued to keep working for Tentry, but I was consulting on the side. A year went by and I was pushing Tentry for a promotion. And classic, when you work for a startup, they go through so much investment and growth quite quickly. A lot of the people who are there at the beginning kind of tend to get left behind. And it wasn't anything bad from the company, but basically I was frustrated because I was killing myself. I was putting myself under a lot of stress. I was fighting for what I believed was correct and what was fair to me, but I wasn't getting it from them. And at the same time, this consultant position for this factory was blossoming. Things were going from strength to strength just with our relationship overseas. And then towards the end of 2019, finally Tentry offered me a promotion to what I've been pitching for. It came a year late, but I told them I needed to go back to China. And kind of just see that level of destiny and see if it was still there for me, and to see if there was something bigger than just being a consultant for this guy in Guangzhou. So I told Tentry that I'm not going to tell them a decision on the job, and I was going to go back to Guangzhou. What happened to me actually in 2019 was that I was in San Diego, and this is all part of my journey, and I met a psychic in San Diego quite randomly, and she told me about my star signs, and basically I'm a Sagittarius sun, I'm a Sagittarius rising, and a Cancer moon. So she explained what that means, and I started doing a lot of research into Western astrology, and it made a lot of sense about my personality type, me being the firecracker I am, me being the adventurer and traveling through work. She told me about Chinese astrology, and she asked me what my Chinese zodiac was, and I didn't know, and I told her what my birthday was, and she told me that I'm a dragon. And combined between a Sagittarius and a dragon, when you combine the two, little did I know there's a huge depth of research and knowledge that comes into these things. And she explained to me that those two signs combined form what is the most ambitious personality type out of all combinations possible. And she was just like, what you're going to do in your life, you have the greatest potential to do something incredibly big, but the biggest risk for you is that there's a 50-50 chance that you will either be a success or you will crash and burn. And at the time, the amount of stress I was under, I was just like, if I continue to operate being the Joey that I was, which was this reactive guy, I had good intentions, but the way I carried myself was I'd piss people off. My Sagittarius ways would get in the way of people. And I said to myself, moving forward, if I'm going to do something quite big and quite adventurous and be a success, I needed to find that balance and that calmness within myself. So now, speeding things back up to that promotion and going back to China, I said, I'm going to go back to China. I'm going to explore what this opportunity looks like full time. At this time, I said to myself, I need to be equipped with a tool. I need to be equipped with something for me that's going to basically give me the strongest intuition possible and just clear my mind of all the crap to make the biggest decision in my life. So my brother had done transcendental meditation for different reasons. He was going through depression and whatnot, but he found TM and he started meditating for 6 months straight, and I saw just automatic change in him, and he was telling me like how incredible this technique was for him. And I take his word for a lot of things. And I said to myself, that's probably something that I need right now. And I've always been intrigued with meditation. And what I did was deliberately, I took the course prior to going on this trip to China, because I wanted to be in the most clearest mindset possible. I wanted my intuition to be its highest. If I started meditating, I took the course, started meditating. I went to Australia first for a wedding, for my best friend's sister's wedding. And then I went up to Guangzhou. And on this trip, I was meditating twice a day. And for me, quite quickly, I hit meditation, I hit the ground running. I went straight into my subconscious. I was able to access things that I didn't know you could access with the human body and the mind. Quickly, from the learnings I was getting from studying meditation, everything in my life was kind of making sense. And I went to China, and I offered what a full-time consultant would look like. Basically, did my proposal, put it all on paper, and the owner of the factory, he said to me, "Don't be a consultant, just be the owner of the factory." And I was just like, that doesn't make any sense. Like, I mean, one thing you should know is that this guy doesn't speak any English, and I don't speak any Mandarin. So all of our conversations go through translators. And I'm like sitting there in this restaurant saying, he wants me to be the owner of this company in a country that I can't even speak the language. I can't even speak to him on the day to day. It's just the right move for me. We talked about everything realistically about what that would look like. And I mean, again, that level of destiny that I had in 2018, that came flashing back to me again. And I was just like, this is meant to be. This is where I need to be in my life. This is something quite big. This is what that San Diego psychic was telling me about my destiny, was something being quite huge, and the ambition coming in. And I was just like, there and then in Guangzhou, we talked financially, realistically about how the money would work and all these things, and relocation to China, and the stars aligned. And for me, again, I was meditating, and my conscience was my mind was just so clear. I decided to quit my job and to move to China. So that's the journey up until there. I think the next couple of questions we can dive into in a bit more detail now, Nathan.
Yeah, very good. Excellent. All right. Well, good story to that point, and clearly your why emerged from that point onwards. So, Joey, talk to us a little bit about today. So I mentioned earlier that obviously UK sourced, you've traveled a lot. You're presently in Toronto. Talk to us a little bit about why you're in an Airbnb, and what does today and the next few days look like?
So, yeah, I mean, today, and just to go back a few months, I moved back to the UK last March. And the plan was to be in China last October, but then obviously I moved back straight into the UK just for a time out to see the family. And lockdown hit, and the world went crazy with COVID. And for me personally, my meditation was just very strong. I've been meditating twice a day, every day since China. I started to think COVID and what I was getting from the energy I was feeling in the universe, and I was saying this is one of the best things to ever happen to the human race and to the planet. As crazy as that may sound, for me, it was Mother Nature pressing the pause button on humanity and just saying, hey, go inside, start meditating, start thinking about your life, start thinking about your decisions. And if you want to come out and play in this world again, come out and play correctly. So that's the way I looked at it. And I was like, this is great. This is a great chance for humanity to slow down. So for me, I said to myself, rather than wait until getting to China to launch the new company, which is Veshin, let's get that going today. Let's get that going now. So in lockdown in the UK, I launched a company, which is the new factory model. What we're doing is we're transitioning his pre-existing business into Veshin. We just decided to get it going. One thing led to another, and it started to take off. We started to take new clients, new brands. So what we do is we produce luxury goods, wallets, handbags, backpacks for other brands on the planet. They come to us, and we execute that stuff for them. What happened for me was that I couldn't get to China in October. I tried to move in February, and then I tried to move in July. And I said to myself, this move is just so complicated, obviously with COVID and restrictions and vaccinations. I just couldn't get to China. But at the same time, the business is growing from strength to strength to strength. And through meditation and operating at that highest state of consciousness, I was able to navigate these waters through COVID and to really to take the company to where it is today. Right now, I'm in Toronto. I'm a dual citizen. So a part of the story I missed was when I quit my job in Canada, I became a citizen a month later. And then I moved to England. I just packed in Canada, after being a citizen and obviously being there for 8 years, having that dual passport now, I decided the UK served an incredible 18 months to build the company and get it out there. But I said, it's now things are starting to kind of open up a little bit. I said, let's come back to Canada. Let's be here short term. I've got a lot of network in North America. I've got brands in Toronto and in the States. And I said, let's just come back to the North America for a little bit and see where it all goes from here. So,
Jerry, I have a question, if I may. So you obviously come from a background of the fashion industry, and you've worked with some great brands like Ten Tree, for example. So you've got lots of peers that are in the fashion industry, and they're not used to conscious manufacturing. How do you talk to them in a manufacturing sense about the differences between the world of retail as they understand it? And I think most of us can understand when it comes to luxury leather goods, it's typically high level, expensive materials. It's going to be leathers and such. How does that then coincide with what Veshin is and stands for?
So yeah, I mean, Dominic, we can go through the so Shell on the left, she supports all the translation, and she's like the anchor between making all the conversation happen. So yeah, that's us as owners. All right, Dominic, you can go to the next one now. So then, yeah, what is Veshin, which I just explained? So we're a factory, we produce goods for other brands. We specialize in the luxury sector for 10 years, and now what we're doing is we're transitioning our model into what is Veshin now, and I can explain the values in the next slide. So here's our pillars of values, and this is kind of where consciousness comes into play. So when I was meditating and I was building the company in lockdown, and I was studying meditation more, and I was learning the philosophies of the universe and all these things, I was trying to figure out, how do I present the company, how do I build it? And obviously sustainability is at the forefront of my values as a designer. I wanted to make sure that the whole company wasn't focused on just one thing. There were so many important things that it needed to focus on. So sustainability being one. The next one was transparency. So for me, growing up as a kid, the made in China stigma was something that was we always associated China with being bad. It's as simple as that. We thought made in China means crap. And from Western media, the way they portray China is horrendous. And what we want to do now is provide transparency to show that China is an incredible country with incredible people. For sure, there's parts of China that are not correct, but there's parts of most countries that need improvement. But for what we want to do is provide transparency to what manufacturing looks like. Our third value is plant-based culture. So for me, I'm vegan myself, and what we want to do is move away from leather and move into plant-based leathers. So we work with materials that come from cactus, that come from apple, pineapple, mushroom, all these incredible new innovations that are happening now in the fashion world, we're using to make the products for our clients. Our fourth value is giving back. So that can be either through the revenues that we get, going back to local charities and supporting them, doing initiatives like tree planting or beach cleanups or local stuff in our local environment. And then obviously carbon emissions are so important in today's world, really giving back and offsetting through our carbon footprint. And then lastly, this is when meditation came into play. So those first four values, I was like trying to think, which one's the most important? Where do we pivot? Where do we present the company? And then through meditation and consciousness, I started to learn. And it came to me quite quickly through my meditation teacher in Bournemouth, that Nathan, you know, and in his book, he explains veganism, sustainability, if it's being ethical or trying to do a good thing, and all these types of things we do in society, these are all come from the tree of consciousness. Like the tree of consciousness, these are all the branches that come from that. So for me, I was just like, this is where it all sits for me. It all comes from this tree of highest, bit operating at the highest state of consciousness. And as a human being, I used to be vegan, but I still am, but I used to be a vegan activist. And activism wasn't the solution to that movement. Consciousness now is the solution to veganism. And all these other values you see here, these come from that overlying branch of the tree of consciousness. So for us, I don't promote it as the most important value from a company perspective, because as I said, it is such a tricky thing for people to understand. But our fifth value is meditation and wellness, and having that in the operation, operating, meditating every day, running a business. This is where, for me as an owner, I need to be operating at the highest state of consciousness. And when you get there and you can operate at that state, it makes life a lot easier to understand basically how to navigate all these different things. And in the world I'm in sustainable fashion, and even sustainability in general, is an incredibly complex thing. And for the day-to-day public individual, it can be overwhelming at the best of times. So consciousness is the key for me. For understanding consciousness is about just doing the small things correctly. And it can be tiny, but if you're conscious and you're trying to push yourself to get to those states of consciousness, then that's all you can do in your day-to-day life. If you're trying to operate with as much love as possible and you're trying to be the best as you can, that is as simple as it has to be. The further you go with consciousness, the further you'll be able to expand your knowledge into all these other areas and do things on a great, more impactful scale. So for us, that's where it stands. And then from a great emission standpoint, we are in the area of fashion, but we're using fashion as a tool to promote and raise consciousness on a global standpoint. So yeah, I think that answers that question, Nathan.
Good, great answer there. And guys, if anyone has any questions throughout, as always, feel free to use the chat group. But that's extraordinary, Jerry. Really love that. So that's kind of thinking about the today. So we've got your journey into consciousness. We've got the why, like why you pivoted and move in this direction, searching for something and not happy with the way life was. Today this is as the business is already well established. You were isolated in the UK, having gone home to go and see family. And then, of course, we all had a very strange 2 years or so with COVID and those disruptions. Now you're trying to reach your destiny, which is going to live in China via Canada. And I know you also were looking to move to the US for a little while, but that's also up in question. So there might be a bit of traveling before all of that. So bless you, you will land. We have every faith, and the stuff that's going along the way is really good. I particularly like the way that meditation is a pillar. Wellness is a pillar. Very often when I look at conscious companies, it's usually well written, like their mission is strong. And amongst that, they'll have a very strong internal employee benefits piece. That's going to be important. But you brought that into a pillar of value. And I really commend that. I like the way that it's like, the way you think, the way you be, the way you exist is then what you do.
I mean, it's just so crucial that companies are operating with love and they're operating at that higher state, because ultimately that's what it's all about. It's about people going to work and not being stressed out and having the tools to be equipped with how to have the best possible life and go on that journey. And for us, we don't force it upon anyone. Obviously, when we get to China, we're going to have a meditation room, and they'll probably see me meditating in that room and be like, "What's he doing?" I want to do that. So we want to encourage it. It's a journey. It's a journey for everyone. The soul is on a journey, and we want to make sure that people in our workforce are equipped with those tools, and they understand the importance of coming to work is to operate with love and to take the love back to your family first, and then whatever happens at work happens. But I believe if you can operate with love, bigger things will happen, and naturally from there we can do a greater impact to the world of fashion, because the world of fashion needs to seriously change, and it needs to buck its ideas up pretty quickly. So we are going through this shift in the universe right now. Like, I was very fortunate to be in Bournemouth for the grand conjunction between Jupiter and Saturn, and we call it the age of Aquarius, where we're coming out of this age of ignorance and we're moving into this new world of love. And it's not going to happen overnight. We are moving that way now, and it's important that, we are seeing this global epidemic of anxiety and mental health, and now people are starting to realize they're going within themselves. They're understanding that pharmaceutical drugs are not the solution, and the solution is buried deep down inside of us. And for us, through transcendental meditation, we can access that subconscious and access that pot of gold. And if we do that every day, we just keep bringing the good stuff up.
Is leather one of the inputs? If so, do we use vegetable tanned or L leather, if I'm pronouncing that right?
Yeah, so in regards to materials, extremely complicated space. For us, our ultimate mission, as I said at the beginning, was that my partners were converted to the Buddhist way of values and philosophies, myself being vegan. Our goal is to move away from leather. Our goal is to, the catch-22 with leather compared to the materials that we're working with right now is that when you measure sustainability and longevity, regardless of where the materials come from, leather right now is the best material on the planet. It's the most durable, it's the most long lasting, but that part of the supply chain before leather is made, it ties into animal agriculture, byproduct, co-product, whatever you want to call it. it's something that doesn't align with me, doesn't align with my partners. For me, I believe the future is plant-based, based on the trillion-dollar industry that is the vegan food sector and how that is growing quite quickly. These are the signs of things are changing. We're starting to work with nature rather than work against it. But this is the thing right now, short term, the materials we work with right now, like we have 3 categories. There's organics, there's plant-based, and then there's synthetics. So in organics, there's organic cotton canvas, there's like hemp, there's tencel. These are all coming from plants. And then there's cork as well that we use. In the synthetics world, we use like regenerated nylon, which is coming from the ocean waste. So material suppliers that are taking fishing nets from the ocean, spinning it into yarn. Reprieve is a plastic bottle. They gather all plastic bottles up and they spin it back into polyester. And then the exciting stuff is the plant-based world. So cactus leather, grape leather, mycelium, apple leather. But to make these products right now, they're not 100% grape, 100% apple. There's a lot of plastic in the composition. So this is where it becomes tricky, because for us and where we're pivoting our business, it's obviously very focused towards plant-based, but to our clients, they're very heavy using leather. So short term, to answer your question, through our current factory, yes, we still take on leather goods business because we're realists. We need to generate revenue to be able to grow quicker. So we do use leather. Again, we don't decide what the client uses. They come to the table and say, we want to use vegetable tanned. All we can do is advise. Right now, for me, I'm like a sustainability consultant, but I do it for free. I basically provide the solutions to them and say, hey, this is the best possible solution you can use right now. But we are actively not looking into leather options. We are actively looking into these areas, be it as many catch-22s. And again, back to consciousness. Now I'm a conscious individual operating at this state. It makes my life a lot easier in navigating these conversations, because there's a lot of shaming culture out there. There's a lot of negativity towards these materials, but it's about being conscious and it's about being progressive and providing you do that. And for me, when I first started Veshin, I was very scared about being a vegan individual operating a business out of a leather goods factory. But then over the course of 18 months, now I'm meditating so much, I'm starting to figure it all out. The key is to be conscious. The key is to just be at that highest state and make the best decisions possible. Am I going to make the best decisions all the time? Not at all. But this is where we're at right now. And I mean, it's extremely exciting. There's trillions of dollars in investment going into these materials. And in the next 5 years, you're going to start seeing a lot of product coming out that's made with these biomaterials. And these are going to be plastic free and they're going to be animal free. So it's really ticking the boxes for sustainability.
Very good. All right. So with an eye on time, we just want to turn our attention to Joe. What does the future hold? And then after that, what we'll do is we'll open up the mics, and anyone else that likes to ask a question, feel free to. I've got a couple in my back pocket as well, including a really prickly one for you later, Joey. So just to wrap up,
conversation here.
There you go. So what does the future hold for you and for Veshin?
So the future for us long term is obviously, as Annette says, leather has to go. I mean, I'm not an activist anymore, but it has to go, and it has to go quickly. So our future is to be kind of 100% operating plant-based in the next couple of years. We're moving into a new factory facility in another part of China. And in this facility, we can really implement amazing sustainable initiatives on the factory, like solar panels and building vegetable gardens and a meditation room and all these kind of things. So our future is that in this new facility. Long term, my goal is to localize manufacturing. As I said, from a carbon perspective, having a product made in China, shipping it to America, back to China, you know what I mean? So Mexico, for example, is where our cactus comes from. It goes from Mexico to China, and then it goes to our client. The footprint on that is so big. And that's one thing that is, it goes against me right now. Obviously, other things that go against me is the made in China stigma. That's quite quickly being, through education and people not being xenophobic, we can eliminate that quite quickly. However, I do believe in localized manufacturing. I believe in people buying products made from countries and regions close to them. So for Veshin, what we're looking at doing next is trying to expand into different regions in the world. We're looking into Central America, we're looking into Costa Rica. These are very early ideas. Africa is going to be an incredible hub for fashion and manufacturing moving forward. But all these areas that are coming into these new economic growth sectors, they need to be operating with consciousness first. They can't do what they did before. So our future is expanding into different areas of the world, but China will be our main hub. It's all quite exciting, really, but we'll see how it goes. But the key is to live in the present. The key is to live day to day. And right now, sitting in this Airbnb, talking to you beautiful people.
Very good. All right. Well, look, we're going to open the mics up for questions, but I just see one coming from Melody, and I'm grateful to you because you've taken the burden off me asking that question. And so essentially, they've asked in an age where lab-grown meat and leather, which is what I was thinking also is becoming popular, would Veshin consider that? So think about lab-grown skins, for example. How does that tie in with your thinking?
I mean, to me right now, based on what I've known and what I've read, I don't see it as an issue. Sustainability, as I said, is so complex. It's measured in so many ways. Using plant-based materials, some of it comes from a virgin source. For example, corn leather, it comes from virgin corn. Apple leather comes from the byproduct of apple skins. So eliminating some of these things, especially corn leather, the amount of field that you have to use to grow corn to make this product, you make something in a lab, the water usage is way down. All these things kind of can be scaled quite less. The animal isn't being killed, provided we know where the cell was taken from, and if the animal had a good life and the animal's still living and it isn't getting used for meat at the end of the day. To me, I don't see any issue with it right now. It is early days, but I think it's a solution. And if it comes out and is lab-grown leather, we might look into it. Before we get to that stage, the volume of incredible materials with mycelium, like mushroom, which is doing a very similar thing, we would go down those routes first. But from a holistic standpoint, for sure, it's a good option, I believe, to sustainability and to animals not being killed.
Great question there. All right, so we'll open up the lines, as they say in charitable events, and we'll ask anyone that wants to actually ask a question.
There's a bunch of questions in the chat already. Do you want me to answer these?
Yeah, you carry on.
There's one more from Arthur here. What is your relationship with the supply chain, environmental impact, and product development manufacturing? When you say relationship, do you mean, I don't know who you mean with. We work with audit companies. We work heavily with social compliance companies. Yeah, maybe you want to take the mic and ask me that question in person. So
where the question comes from is that the supply chain process is now showing a much higher cost for its functioning, and I don't see it necessarily coming down, even though they're currently blaming this on the COVID situation. But with costs like that rising up, there must be a balance somewhere between, is it worth manufacturing in China versus other regional areas? And have you considered addressing that aspect to reduce the environmental impacts?
Yeah, definitely. And I think I touched on it just then about looking into other locations, because one is the carbon, two is cost. One thing we need to really eradicate quite soon is that because of the way capitalism has operated, the cost of goods, especially in the world of fashion, the price of product isn't correct. It's so devalued to begin with. The manufacturers are operating correctly, and so are lots of aspects of the supply chain, but the final product is being retailed incorrectly. And as a result of that, that means we're all chasing dollars and pushing margins. So we need to get the cost of product back up to where it should be. And as a result of that, we can continue to do business as per norm. But I mean, fast fashion is the cancer of the industry. But we're starting to see now, through circularity and the circular economy coming through now, the cost of the product at the start can start a little higher. For sure, short term, there's brands who are affected by these things, which means they can't produce in China, but producing locally is always a lot more expensive. But for sure, the freight and the logistics costs are quite less. It is an absolute catch-22 everywhere you look at it. To answer your question, we need to get the cost of product higher, which will support the supply chain to operate correctly. But localizing manufacturing is a great solution, and we want to support that by having Veshins all over the world. Cool.
Other questions, folks?
Hey, Joey. This is David Utz. How you doing?
Hey, buddy.
I'm just curious, when we think about other conscious companies out there, sometimes the industry is lagging far behind doing what you're doing. And the leverage point is the customer. The customer can change the industry because if they're buying your product, they see the value of the conscious engagement of buying that product. I'm just curious how that's working for you in that kind of fine line you walk in an industry that may probably is far less conscious than you overall.
Yeah, and I mean, the part for us that makes it tricky is that we're not a brand ourselves. We're not producing product for our own consumer. We work with brands, and it's the brands who are responsible for selling to those consumers. So as much as we wish we could control their storytelling and show them how they should be showing the consciousness that's gone into the product to the consumer, it's ultimately on them. So, I mean, it slows things down a little bit, but the thing right now that's coming, especially from COVID in fashion, is that a lot of the companies that were not operating correctly they're sitting on the hot seat right now, and they need to start changing their ways, especially from a transparency standpoint. And there's an organization called Fashion Revolution, and through Fashion Revolution, it's about promoting transparency in the supply chain. And if you like it or not, transparency is trending, and transparency is also a way to make a lot of money because the consumer now is pushing for knowing where their product is getting made. The bubble I live in, the consumer and the brands I work with are these kind of people, but you step it onto the high street, and for sure, there's a lot of organizations, there's a lot of companies that are not doing this, and the consumers are still not asking the question. But all we can do from a consumer standpoint is love them. And through love, they can start to change their consumer behavior. Consumerism is there because people want to do something to make them happy. You know what I mean? Like, that's why they buy stuff. That's why they buy a cheap shirt, is because they want to do something to keep them happy. If the individuals operating with more love, they will start to act a little different with their consumer behavior. So it's a slow burn, this one, because the consumer is ultimately the master for changing these on a bigger scale. And that can only happen through consciousness and through love.
Melody?
So I suppose I just wanted to chat with you about, in this wave of greenwashing where you find that all these big brands, so the fast fashion brands, are hiding behind the premise of greenwashing, where you find that, obviously because this is the future, sustainability is the future because of the climate crisis that we're experiencing globally. But you also find that through marketing and through almost deceitful promotion of these fast fashion brands, that we are obviously being bombarded with greenwashing and that sort of thing. So I wanted to ask you, how do you think that we can counter this in promoting these sustainable fashion brands in a way that will get to the consumer clearly, if you get what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, greenwashing it makes my life so much harder, especially with some of the suppliers we work with and the brands we work with. When they launch their materials, they launch their product, I'm like, what are you doing? Why are you spinning it this way, and why are you doing it that way? And ultimately, greenwashing comes from fear. The fact that you're manipulating a story or you're changing a story is because you're scared of what's going to happen. If you start to operate without any fear, then there's nothing to lose. And from there, you don't have to greenwash. You can be honest. And right now, it's just about being honest. I mean, and brands need to start becoming honest. But the thing with these bigger organizations is that they don't have a leader at the top. You know what I mean? There's shareholders, there's investors on board, and there's no consciousness in the company. It's just a name on a graphic. As a result of that, this is where marketing departments come in, and they've got to make X, Y, and Z dollars for investors. And this is where greenwashing comes in. Moving forward, I mean, this is such a tricky one because these companies are still pre-existing. It's really about holding these individuals and these companies highly accountable. We are starting to see a lot of talk around greenwashing now, and around people are becoming smarter, and people are starting to ask these questions and calling out the bullshit. And the consumer now and people in the industry, it is negative, and it's not the way I like to operate anymore, but they're starting to call out greenwashing, and you can't greenwashing. So ultimately it's going to get to a point where we're going to have to see brands becoming honest. And because sustainability is such a complex thing, I forgot the name of the company, but we saw a company last year, and they came out and they said that we're not going to be sustainable in our operation right now because they simply can't get they simply can't get there. And they said that we're not going to be doing this, we're not going to be doing that, we're not going to be doing this. And the reasons for that is that we're not experts, we don't know how to do it, and we're not going to lie about it. The way they did that campaign came out was so powerful because they were being so honest about all their defects, and you have to admire that. And for me, with Veshin, the key to one of my successes so far is that at the beginning, I was scared about the leather goods and the vegan side of things clashing. And then again, through meditating every day now and starting to operate without fear. And if you remove fear from your body, you start to just be honest. And people can't have a go at an honest person. When you're already on your knees saying, hey, I'm not doing things correctly, no one can kick you again. If they want to kick you, they're just a bastard. But hopefully moving forward, we're going to start to see more companies just being honest about where they're at. And as I said, with the energy that's happening right now with the greenwashing movement, your question exactly, there was a lot of hype around people trying to pull out. And experts are out there now to throw these juggernaut companies under the spotlight, and they won't get away with it for very long. So just be honest. And hopefully honesty will come out more in campaigns.
2 more questions. So I'm going to go to Prince just because he's top left of my screen, and Annette will come after you. Over to you, Prince.
Hi, everyone. Hi, Jerry. So yeah, I was just wondering, if you had an idea on how much impact that you and Veshin can actually make for so early on in the product lifecycle, where a lot of the problems are really coming from, later on in the, from the marketing, fast fashion, you said the made in China stereotype and all that stuff. How much impact do you think you can have from so early on in the product lifecycle?
I like to think we can have a huge impact now with the tools that we're starting to get equipped with. Blockchain is becoming this huge movement right now in all sectors. And what we're trying to do now through blockchain, have a QR code on product so the consumer can scan that product. And then right at the beginning, when they buy that product, they can see exactly where it's come from. And that just catches that thing right at the beginning. It's like, this is where it's come from. Wow, that's cool that this factory's on there. And I think with blockchain, there's a huge impact to be made that's quite disastrous quite early on. So really excited for that, because right now it's about asking brands to put us on their website, and then it's just slowed down. But I feel like with blockchain and the circular economy, getting involved in that, I feel like there's a huge way to make quick impact quite quickly on. That's what the consumer wants to see, and it's sexy, it's trending right now. And then on top of that, I just feel like hopefully, obviously the journey and my story is it's relatable to lots of people, and I hope that we can empower others to do what we're doing if it's a slow thing. But right now everyone is on the pressure cooker. We just had COP26, and we know what's happening in the world right now. We know how bad the planet is, and it's such a pressure cooker. So I like to think that we can hopefully make a bit of a dent. But if we don't, that's just the way it goes down, and we'll just keep doing us, and we will stay in our lane, and we'll just keep doing what we're doing, and hopefully radiate energy out there and see what happens, man.
That sounds great. Just a quick follow-up, just because you mentioned the QR code scanner. Do you think something maybe like a traffic light system, how we have with food, would work in terms of production?
What's the traffic light system? So
how on packaging in food, I know in the UK you have tell you the nutrition content. So green's healthy, and then red's really bad. Do you think that is something that could be implemented?
100%. I feel like with the blockchain, we can get to that system where when you scan it, it's coming up saying, it's about who's putting those metrics in to define sustainability, which is the hard thing. But definitely the blockchain companies we're working with, everything right now moving forward is going hand in hand. Blockchain companies are working with circular economy brands, and these brands their sustainability is at the forefront of their mindset. So you like to think that all the brands going into these systems are going to be green to begin with. There's a screening process there, hopefully, that will say to some people, you're not quite ready to go into this QR process. But yeah, definitely. It's a great way of providing the transparency into the content and material of the product, just like food. So yeah, awesome.
Yeah, makes sense. Cheers. Thank you.
Yeah, hi, thank you. First of all, Joe, the thing that I want to say, listening to your story and everything, is the fact that it takes a lot of bravery and courageousness to stand with that kind of conscious mission, and that many of us are on that kind of path, and sometimes it can be a lonely journey, and it can be something where you're not sure how it's going to work out. And I'm really happy to listen to that story and the fact that you just kept on going, you know, no matter what, and you trusted and you trusted and you trusted. So I think that's an important thing to note for everybody that's in this network, that, you know, and the point of having this network so people can listen to each other's support, you know, stories and support that. I've got a couple of sort of overlaps I just wanted to kind of mention. So I've spent the last sort of 35 years in kind of martial arts and Eastern wisdom and philosophy and stuff. And I feel like I'm really happy that the factory's in China for some of the things that you said. One, because of the bad press that it's had, and that you needed to go back to source to correct that imbalance. And so taking love and consciousness back to the place where, inarguably, with the temples and the Shaolin and all the rest of it, that so much goodness came from and can still spill out into the world. So as much as I really support the idea, as you said, of making them all more localized, almost to have the heartbeat back in China, I think was, like you said, it was a synchronistic universal thing. Cool. And just the other thing you mentioned about activism and consciousness, and I agree with you entirely. However, I don't think we're necessarily, I'm just sort of saying a yin and yang thing, I don't think we're quite yet at the ability to drop the yang activism. No. because I agree with everything you said about love, peace, harmony, consciousness, and it all coming from that space for sure. But I've been on that path for sort of like 38 years now, and it's only recently that I start to see things. And as you said about building momentum and impact, I really feel that it's gathering speed now. And I really feel that if you keep at it, and other people that are collectively, we often talk about this tipping point number of 144,000 conscious companies. And I feel really strongly that if everybody who's locked on that, rather than thinking about, oh, what are the negatives, what are the hurdles, what are the obstacles, just to keep forward focusing. And the fact that you have everything you need, the rest of it is like any disruptive industry, isn't it? It's letting everybody else catch up. And I think you're right. And I just quickly wanted to mention, like TikTok, like one of my kids keeps showing me really young kids of like 12 and 13 posting these conscious things on all these topics. And so for a bit of your kind of media campaign, I think getting out to a lot of these kids that are coming through, to because they're already having this altered state where they're getting not into fast fashion, and hopefully within that next sort of decade coming through, that is something that we can actively work on, you know, I say slowly but surely eradicating, but maybe quicker. Awesome. So yeah, I mean, to your points, the first point for me, it can be a lonely time, but one of the keys in the last 18 months for me is to surround yourself with just like-minded people. It's as simple as that. Just surround yourself with people who are up for your mission, who are supporting you, and just create that network. And this is what you guys are doing here in this chat. And it's so nice to be part of this network now. And for anyone who feels like they're alienated out there or alone, just lean on the people that believe in you and believe in that shared mindset. The next thing about China, people always say, why did you do China? Why didn't you do it in England? I'm like, the universe chose China. I didn't choose where to go. It just happened in China. And then I knew how, obviously, the problems within China, but people always say, oh, China doesn't deserve its chance to change. It's already fucked up enough things. And it's like, no, it's like, we can't bury our heads in the sand, and we can't just go, let China continue to be shit and go somewhere else. China isn't shit to begin with. There's a lot of good things happening there. They need storytelling and they need transparency around them. And then hopefully this will empower other sectors of the country to start changing and doing things correctly. Will we make that difference through Veshin? Maybe yes or no. Doesn't matter, but China deserves that spotlight. The next thing, I think it was kids. And I mean, it's so hopeful today and what we're seeing now with kids, they're just so much more conscious. I mean, their decision making is just so much more
raw and pure. And it's like, I mean, it's tough because obviously we're parents and they're set in certain ways. And I mean, the amount of kids I hear who want to go vegan and the parents are like, oh, like we can't do that. And it's like, but the kid will do it eventually. So with fast fashion, a lot of students now, people are starting to become a lot more conscious. I don't know it's something to do with the universe. I mean, kids getting born in this world today are starting to see like Greta Thunberg and be like, I can relate to her as a kid, see what she's doing. And they don't understand governments, they don't understand politicians, and they see Greta Thunberg and they're like, that's someone I can relate to and I want to do that. And it's pretty cool what's happening. So it's important that we support. And education is so important for the youth of today. Cool. I think that was all your points, but yeah, amazing synergies and yeah, so good. And I'm gonna put my LinkedIn in here. If anyone wants to connect with me on LinkedIn, we can join the fun.
Join Veshin and also Joey's
Joey.
updates.
Yeah, that's it. Obviously, any more questions, feel free to come forward. I just have one, if I may. Joey, what's been the fashion industry? How receptive have they been to you? Are you disrupting them? Are they struggling with you? You know, how are they adopting you or considering what you do?
I guess, yeah, similar to Annette's point. I mean, I'm not going at it from an activism standpoint. If I was, I'd probably be pissing a lot of people off. And I don't want to be doing that. So far right now, we're being really well received. We're connecting to the right people. And as I said, I mean, what we're doing is the trend, is where the industry is going. So we're already part of the industry that people already know in the sectors that aren't operating correctly within fashion. They know they need to get to these sectors. So now people start hearing about our values and what we're doing. It's been pretty cool, man. It's been nice to be received this well so far, and the key is to stay grounded and to stay humble and to not get ahead of ourselves. But yeah, I mean, if I went at it heavy leather is bad, we're moving away from leather, I'd go nowhere. I get a lot of people come onto our Instagrams and our Facebooks and LinkedIn and they shame Veshin and they say that leather's like the best material and leather's this and what you're doing in plastics is bad. I understand the catch-22s, but I just say to them, yeah, I agree, leather's pretty good material from a longevity standpoint, but is it the future? We can agree to disagree. I still love you.
Very good, mate. Very good. And your hand's still up. Is that just remaining there, or do you have another one? Anyone else before we conclude our session today?
Yes, if I may. Nathan,
please.
It was really interesting to hear this story, the whole journey unraveling when you were talking about the fact that actually the act of meditation led you to that higher state of consciousness to make that leap, because it's among some of the contacts and friends I have, they did experience this, anything from meditation marathon to what have you. But most of them ended up being traders or, sellers and stuff like that. And your story stands out because you made that leap from that higher state of consciousness to actually jump headlong into this conscious, manufacturing. I mean, you're the only one I've known. I mean, like of all the people I've met. So that's why I find it like it's a major takeaway for me. I mean, like hearing your story today.
Thanks, man.
So. Yeah, I mean, it's truly amazing. So thanks for sharing it.
I guess the thing to kind of like answer that a little bit is just that my life today, like I used to be scared of death as a kid. Like I've always been searching for like the future, and I lived in that fear of like what was not going to happen next. And I just felt like in this lifetime, I was meant to cram it all in and get as much done as I can, because this is my only. As a kid, you think you only get one crack at life, right? When you start meditating, you realize the soul and the body are completely separate. And the soul's probably been here before, and the soul will go on and do something else after this lifetime. So for me, I got to this point where I was pushing this ambition, and this ambition at the time came from this fear of this, like, I need to get it all done in this lifetime. And then for me, I started meditating, but I was at a point when I had all this stuff ready to go with my ambitions. And then I started meditating, and I figured out what was to come next. And fortunately for me now, I'm in this position now where if I wasn't doing Veshin, I'll be pretty happy just meditating, just being a guy, and then I'll just go somewhere else after I die. But now I'm in this point where I've got all equipped with this incredible journey that's led me to this path. And now combined with meditation, Yeah, I'm very happy for how it's worked out, but I also believe in the journey, and I also believe that I think the journey has already happened, and I'm just living it now. I'm just executing it. I believe in the life path of the soul, and I feel like my soul has been here on the planet numerous times, and this time I'm just wrapping it all up, which is, it explains my exploring, it explains me living on multiple continents, and now I'm just really happy to see what happens next with Veshin and the impact we can do with fashion. And at the end of the day, the universe and Mother Nature, the planet will all be just fine. They will always be here. And that's not going to change. The only thing that can change is the human experience on the planet. You know what I mean? Like, sustainability is this thing about sustaining the human experience. Mother Nature will be fine. It's frustrating and it's annoying how humans wipe out animals, so we can fix that. But at the end of the day, the planet's been through ice ages. The dinosaurs had a crack at it. Animals have a crack at it. There'll be something else next. So we just got to be happy.
Beautiful summary. Thank you for that. That's really cool to hear.
Cool.
Very good. All right. I think we're there. That's really good. So look, thank you to everyone that joined. Thank you to anyone that's watched this in a recording. Jerry, great thank you to you for sharing your story, your insights, giving us so much to think and work with and take forward in our journey as well. And thank you for all the questions. They've been really great and interactive. So on behalf of everyone here, the founders of Chen, Esther, and Dominic, myself, and Jerry, thank you all for being here with us, and wish you all the very best.
Cool. Just put
Thanks, everyone.
Social media in the LinkedIn there for anyone who wants to follow on Instagram and then LinkedIn. Stay in touch, support the journey, and let's just build this conscious network together. But yeah, thanks so much, guys, and sending love. Sending love.
We're with you.
All right.
Very good.
Peace.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.